Hey friends, welcome to the Angie Ambrosetti Show. Let her out to play. I'm Angie, your host, a teenage mom turned multi-six-figure earner, married to the same man for nearly 40 years. I'm a homeschooling mom of 7 and totally unqualified, at least on paper, but wildly called by God. Remember, He doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. Here, we are going to talk about it all. Healing from the hard stuff, building a business with heart, raising a big family, walking in faith, and finally breaking free from the lies that said we weren't enough. So if you're ready to stop playing small, shake off the doubt and the shame, and step fully into who you were created to be, girl, you are in the right place. Let's go. Hey friends, happy Memorial Day 2025. I'm so excited to be coming to you today with my friend Paige Lankford. And I will just say it is sunny outside. It has been raining for so many days, and I'm thrilled that today it seems like it's a good sign that we're having sunshine. So, my friend Paige and I have been friends for about 5 years. We were just talking about it recently. We figured out it was about 5 years. We met each other through our similar network marketing company. And we hit it off because I think we connected with one another because we both figured out that we were teenage moms back in the day, and our oldest sons were about the same age. So we just hit it off as friends. We don't live too terribly far from one another. So I invited her to come on today and be a guest through this series of teenage moms, previous teenage moms anyway. So Paige is an amazing human being. I've just loved getting to know her. She is a mom of 3. She's a GG to 6 amazing grandkids. And you guys know how I love grandkids. So I am so thrilled to have her on the call today. Paige, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Yes. Also, I would just want to give this little accolade out to her that not only was she a teenage mom, but she is now a multi six-figure earner in our network marketing company. And gosh, you guys definitely want to hear from her. So, girl, I just want to ask you, like, take us back to the beginning. What was it like at the age of 19? What was going through your heart and your mind at the young age of 19? Because that was me. I was 19 years old when I found out I was pregnant. And what a vulnerable time teenage girls have at 19. So take us back to that and tell us just a little bit.
Okay, so I grew up in a small town in South Georgia, in Valdosta, Georgia, and I was dating my high school sweetheart, and we went to the University of Georgia together. And so I had been in college for 1 year and came home that summer and found out I was pregnant. So I was your normal sorority girl, just living the life, going to college, loving being a UGA dog, and not thinking about having children. Like, that was not on my radar. I honestly did not even want kids. I was 19 years old. I had not even thought about that yet. I wanted a career. I was majoring in international business, and I saw myself living in Paris, being a buyer for a large department store or something like that. It had nothing to do with children. Like, this was not in my plan. All that being said, I also grew up Church of Christ, which is very religious. Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night church, like very all the rules. We knew nothing about grace. Grace was not taught. So I had a lot of shame around getting pregnant. Lots of shame. Um I felt so scared, so small, so like I can't even describe how bad I felt about myself, because that was just really not me to have sex before I got married. It really was not, but here I was. Okay. So I did a pregnancy test, and I was like, this can't be. I was with my college roommate, and she was like, do another one. So I think we ended up doing 7 or 8 pregnancy tests. Like, I had no idea that I was going to be pregnant. So then we had to go about the task of telling our parents. Um, my parents were not super thrilled that me and my ex-husband now were together. It was just, we were young. We were, it was just not who they saw me with. And so we first told his family, and they were very supportive. I think, I think they saw me as maybe helping him through a rough time in his life, but my parents did not see it that way. And it was they were supportive. My family was always supportive, but that they didn't want me to get married. Not having him was never, that thought never even crossed my mind. But my mom was like, why don't you just have him and just live here, stay in Valdosta? You can go back to school eventually, all that, all those sorts of things. So there was the question of, do I get married? Do I stay single with this baby at 19 years old? And then as we progressed, we ended up getting married really quickly, probably within about, gosh, I don't know, 3 weeks to a month. We had a big Southern wedding, which was very strange. I was throwing up the whole time, had to take my dress off 4 times before I walked down the aisle. But
Oh
we
dear.
got here. Okay, so that's what me taking you back. Did I take you back too far?
No, that's fantastic. So throwing up on your wedding day, that's an awesome sign.
A good time.
And so when you told your parents, "Hey, we're going to go ahead and get married," like what was their response to that?
I mean, my dad, he didn't really have a lot to say. He just was kind of like, okay, you're a big girl now. If this is your choice, that's what you want to do. But my mom was not super on board at all. I mean, she wasn't like telling me, no, you shouldn't do this, but she kept offering up, like, maybe y'all should think about this, get married later if you're still together, that sort of thing. But, this is kind of funny. We went and saw that movie, Parenthood, the movie, not the show. And honestly, that's kind of what made me decide, okay, let's go ahead and do this, because he was crying, I was crying, and he assured me, we can do this. We can do this. Let's get married and let's do this. So we made the decision to get married, and we ended up having another child together. So it wasn't, it wasn't all bad. We were married for about 10 years, but we're just two different people. We were married too young and didn't really know who we were at that time. And anyway, it just fell apart.
Yeah. Yeah. So what were you thinking as far as like you wanted a career. You didn't want kids. You were thinking, I'm going to be going to Paris. I'm going to do all of these
Mhm.
things. And now you're having a baby. And so that obviously put the brakes on that. What was going through your heart and your mind, if you can recall back? I know we're in our 50s now. It's not always easy to go that
Yeah.
far, but what were you thinking? Did you at all? Like, what?
Well, I thought my life is over as I knew it. I was very social, like always had a lot of friends. I was in college, sorority thing, and just lived like a normal teenage girl, and I did not think about what my life would look like with kids. And I was not even the kind that really babysat. I mean, there was one family I babysat for, but I just really wasn't that kid that just, oh, I just love kids. Like that just was not me. And my heart felt like I deserved what I was going through because I had screwed up and had sex before I got married. And so I was like, okay, give it to me, God. I felt punished.
Mm,
Now I know that's not what was going on. It was all in God's plan. But back then, as a child, I felt like, because I was a child. I mean, when you're 19, let's be real, you're not like, I mean, a lot of people are, but I grew up not having to work and do all these things. I had never really worked. I'd worked in some stores, but
hmm
it just wasn't like on my radar as to, I'm going to be a mom. We're going to be supporting ourselves, like growing up, like just like that overnight. And
right.
so I felt a lot of shame and guilt. And it really took me about 10 to 15 years to work through a lot of that shame and guilt.
Yeah. Well, I've heard people talk about that before, and myself included. And I just know that if that were the kind of loving God that we serve, like we'd be thinking, wow, what a jerk. But like, that's not who he is. Like, he doesn't like throw these punishments at us because of our sin. He loves us. in the midst of that. And because of that, and now looking back, you can probably see that differently, as can I see it differently in my own life and even my children's lives these days. I can see that God is a God of love and mercy and forgiveness.
Mhm.
And I'm so thankful that you said that you were able to look back, even if it took 10 or 15 years, it took me like
Right.
40 years.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, back then let's be real, I was immature not only in age, but in my spiritual growth.
Hmm.
I mean, I was living on my parents' faith, basically, you know, and so not only was I becoming a mom, having to figure out how to be married, all those things, that's when I started to grow spiritually as well. Because really, before, I mean, of course, I was baptized, I was at church, I knew all the stories, but I had not faced anything up to that point that was difficult
Yeah.
at all. And then wham bam, you know, one of the hardest things, you know, there's things in your life you go through and you know, and you think of when you're in the deepest valley, that
Hmm.
is, you know, in the top 3
Yeah,
for
for sure. Mm.
even though it turned out amazing.
Now you said you were married to your first husband for about 10 years.
Mhm.
Okay. What were some of the biggest challenges that you guys faced? Here you are. Was he young? Was he 19 or
Yeah,
20 as
he
well?
was 19. We were in the same class in school. The biggest challenges were probably that we were in love, but I would say it was just such a very immature love.
Mhm.
You know, I didn't even know, like, he ended up being a country singer, but when we got married, it was fresh out of high school where he was a high school quarterback. You know what I'm saying? And it
Yeah.
was like when he decided he wanted to pursue this music career, I'm like, wait, like, where did this come from? I mean, I knew you had a guitar, but like that's all I knew. And then he wants to move to San Antonio, Texas to work in this at this country show. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You want me to leave my parents? Are you kidding me? And go to San Antonio, Texas? So, and then end up in Nashville. I mean, that was none of that was on my radar, even when we got married.
Yeah.
So it was like that was a challenge. Like I didn't want to leave my parents, my family, his mom was she is still one of my best friends, you know, and they were my support. They were the ones teaching me how to take care of this kid that I did not know anything of. I mean, it's a miracle that he is who he is, you know what I'm saying? But that was a challenge. You know, he was a singer, so he was gone all the time. That was huge challenge. Um, there were lots of things that went on in our marriage that it was just never going to work. And we just grew apart.
Yeah. So how old was your little boy whenever you moved to San Antonio?
My goodness, he was 18 months old. And Rhett had gone to audition for this thing at Fiesta, Texas. It's kind of like Opryland was in Nashville,
Mhm.
called Fiesta, Texas, and they had country shows. And he was like, okay, I'm going to go interview for this. I'm like, oh, cool. Yeah, that'll be fun. Me thinking, you're not going to get it. Well, he comes back and he said, I got it. And I'm like, whoa, well, have fun. Basically, was my like, see ya, peace out. And my dad looked at me and he goes, that's your husband. You have to go with him. I said, to Texas? Like, I'm moving from Valdosta, Georgia to San Antonio, Texas, like 18 hours, or I don't even know how long it was from my mama. And he was like,
Mm.
have to go. So anyway, we went and it ended up being the best thing for me and Thomas Rhett because I learned how to be a mom because there wasn't, my mom wasn't there. Rhett's mom wasn't there. My support system was gone. It was me and him against the world. And then,
Yeah.
you know, when I kind of figured it out, he leaned on me, I leaned on him, and we became more of a family. And Rhett, too, all of us became more of a family. And then by the time we moved to Nashville, which I think we were only in Texas for maybe a year, and then we went straight on to Nashville. By
Mhm.
then, my separation anxiety from my family was gone, and I was totally fine after that, as far as, you know, taking care of Thomas Rhett.
Yeah. And then when did you have your second baby?
Then I had Casey 4 years later. And all in this time, I'm going back to school periodically. By this point, I had changed my major to a teacher, which I mean, people were like, you're going to be a teacher? And I'm like, yes, because that fits into my kids' schedules.
Yeah.
So by this time, I'm thinking, what can I do to earn money that would fit into my kids' schedules? And I mean, really, being a teacher is the only job you can get where you get your summers off. And so I was going back to school periodically through all the, when we moved. I didn't go
Mhm.
to Texas, but I went in Nashville. Then I got pregnant with Casey. And then after I had Casey, I did not go back to school until me and Rhett got divorced, which was probably 6 years later. Then I went back to school to, get a job.
Gotcha. And how long did you work as a teacher? Elementary school teacher, is that right?
Yes, I taught kindergarten. Really, I taught kindergarten, second, fourth, and I think I did my student teaching in fifth, but I taught for about 20 years. And
Okay.
while I was teaching, that's where I met my upline with Plexus, and I started sharing Plexus and teaching. And I did that for about 3 years until I made way more with Plexus, and I was able to quit my teaching job and do Plexus full time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yes, I love hearing those
Yes.
success stories, of course. Okay, so you talked about your son and how he is now into music. So tell us a little bit about that. I mean, in your mind, were you thinking, oh my goodness, my son is going to be a country music star? I mean,
Never even crossed my mind. Now, he had been entertaining us since he was 2. I mean, I can remember him in his little cowboy boots, holding his guitar, and, of course, his dad being a country singer and a writer, and he is ultra talented. Like, he could write a song about anything all the time. Rhett could. So
yeah,
Thomas Rhett, growing up in that, I knew he was a little more entertaining than most kids, but I
yeah,
never thought he would end up wanting to do that because I preached all the way through their lives. You do not want to be in this business because it pulls, the father away from his family a lot. Like I would plan and plan and plan birthday party, and then I would have to replan and like, cause he was always something would come up that was going to help his career. And he chose, to do career stuff a lot. Um, but so I thought because I had preached all this all these years, and Thomas Rhett never really brought it up. I mean, all through, he was a normal, like high school kid, played football, played soccer. His senior year, he did pull out his guitar a lot more, and he sang in the talent show at school, and he was so good. He sang with this little girl, and everybody was like, oh my word, I'm like, wow, he is really good. But then I didn't really think much of it until he was in college. That's when he really started singing by the fire at all the, all the frat parties and that sort of.
hmm,
And then one day it was his junior year, and he was really good in college. Like he made good grades. He went to Lipscomb here in Nashville. And but one day his junior year, he came home and he said, "Sit down, Mom." And I was like, "Oh Lord, what's this gonna be?" And he said, "I'm dropping out of college and I'm gonna sign this publishing deal." And I'm like, "No, no, no, we're not doing that. You just finish college. Then if you want to do that, I guess. But I'm not on board. You know that." He's like, I know, and I'm not gonna be like that. I'm not gonna, it's not gonna be like that for me. I'm gonna do it differently. But at this point, he's only thinking writing. He wasn't even really thinking of as far as it went. He was signing a publishing deal. So I sat down with the publisher guy, and we sat across the table, and I said, "How would you feel if your child was dropping out of college to sign a publishing deal?" He's like, "I understand your concerns." He said, "We're going to take care of him. We're going to, he's around good people." And I'm like, "Okay." So I was never really on board with it. Kind of had a bad taste in my mouth with the whole industry. But the first time we watched him do like a showcase type thing, we were like, wow, he is really entertaining. Like you couldn't take your eyes off of him. He just sucked you in. And I was like, this might go somewhere. Um, so then after that, I kind of got over the whole college thing. And honestly, I've always told him, you're going to wish you had that degree. And he does. He does. And he wants to go back and finish it online. So mama knows best sometimes.
always, always.
Yeah. But for him, it's worked out really, really well.
Yeah. So, what would you say you are most proud of? The fact of being, did you actually have him when you were 19 or was he born when you were 20?
No, I had him when I was 19.
Okay.
Um, and then I turned 20 about 3 months later. So yeah, I was young. So let me think, what am I most proud of? I think just how far I came from not even wanting kids
Hmm.
to that being my whole focus, and that's all I wanted to do was be a good mother. Like in a matter of, I mean, the minute he was born, I was like, wow. Like, couldn't you love anything more than this child that you carried for 9 months? And, so then your focus becomes, how do I parent this child in a way where he's going to grow up and love Jesus? And lucky for me, my parents, I mean, I think I had the best parents on the planet. And, they were always good role models for me. Like, no matter what, getting pregnant at 19 is kind of a slap in the face to your parents too. So, but they never turned their backs on me, and they always were there for me. And always, I had a great foundation. Like I
Yeah.
had, stuff to build on that my parents blessed me with. So, my feelings of insecurity and shame and guilt and all that were there probably until after I had Casey, and I went to a church where, grace was taught, because that wasn't taught at the small town Church of Christ that we went to early on.
Hmm.
But going to that church later, it finally hit me one day, and I was like, God doesn't even remember that I did that, nor does he care. He's like, he forgave me in the moment. And then for 10 years later, it was me who wasn't giving him enough credit, you know?
Yeah.
So I think I'm just proud of just that I was able to raise my children to love Jesus, because that's the most important thing.
Absolutely. I love that. That's so good. So, if you were talking to your teenage self now, back then, that little girl Paige at 19, what piece of advice would you give her?
Just to know it is gonna be okay. And I still have to tell myself that in things. And I think I learned that, just having, now I'm 55, back then I was 19, but just to tell her that it's all gonna be fine. This is a blip in your
Yeah.
life. And in the big scheme, none of it even matters.
Yeah.
Any little thing that we go through seems so huge in the moment. But then if you look back on it 2, 3, 5 years later, you're like, I learned a lot in that moment. And that's why it happened.
Yeah. For certain. So, what about you're remarried now? So, you were married to Rhett for 10 years. And then tell us a little bit about how you met your new husband and what's happened there.
Yeah. Well, my new husband, we've been married 22 years.
Yeah. Your newer husband.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. So
I love him, by the way. He's a great
yes,
man.
yes, he is amazing. So God works in some crazy ways, and we all know that. So I mean, when Rhett and I divorced, I had not done anything for 10 years because I was at home raising my children. So I didn't have friends who, all of my friends were moms of kids and married. So I had to kind of get out of my comfort zone if I ever wanted to have a life outside of my kids. And so I started going out with my sister and her big group of friends. She was just graduating from Lipscomb, which is where I went to. And so I started just hanging out with all these people from Lipscomb. And Tim was in that group. He's 3 years younger than me. And at first I thought he was cute, obviously, but then I was like, that is not what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for another good-looking guy that's going to take me down all these roads that I don't want to go down. And so I kind of checked him off the list. Well, he kept kind of asking me out and stuff. And I was like, well, we can just hang out. We can go to dinner, stuff like that. And so we did some. And then before I knew it, it was like, I mean, to my kids, he was my friend, Tim. I mean, I would never bring in a bunch of guys and like, this is my boyfriend, because you never know what's going to happen, and kids don't need that. Because I think at this time, Thomas Rhett was probably 12, and then so Casey would have been like 8, maybe 11 and 7. And so I looked at him. Well, one day my mom said, are y'all dating? And I was like, no, we're not dating. We're just like really good friends. And she was like, you sure about that? And so then I asked him, I was like, are we dating? And he was like, yeah, I think we are. So it was so easy. Like it just evolved easily. And then from there, I mean, we just kept dating. We got married 2 years later. And then 2 years after that, we had Tyler. And our marriage has been, I mean, I don't want, no marriage is easy all the time, but our marriage, especially compared to my first marriage, has been so easy.
Well, that's good, right? And
Yep.
so now you have another son.
Yes, we
Does he
have
have
Tyler. He just turned 20.
okay, does he have an interest in music?
No,
Okay.
gosh. No, I think that no way. My dad is musical, so it can't just come from Rhett's side
Yeah.
of the family. But no, but he does have a guitar, and he is pretty good on the guitar, but he doesn't sing. I mean, he just plays it. Of course, who knows? That's what Thomas Rhett did too. He
Yeah.
just playing his guitar in college. And then Casey is not musical either. I mean, she could be, but she would never even want to figure it out.
Yeah. Well, I can relate just the smallest amount because our youngest, we've talked about this a lot. And I just recently came upon his shower singing video from when he was like 6. And a friend had come into town and she's like, "Oh my gosh, who's that? Who's singing?" And I was like, "Oh, that's just Ian. He's in the shower singing." And now like he just loves it. It's everything to him is his music and his acting career. So I might have to hit you up for some advice on that. He's still in high school, so we're not to that college
Yeah.
level yet, but
Yeah.
anyways, what has it been like to have a son that's famous? Like, to be honest, when I first met you, I didn't even know who Thomas Rhett was. Like
Uh-huh.
my kids, I was like, "Oh yeah, my friend Paige, I met her and her son is Thomas Rhett." Like, who's that? And of course, I'm older, so I didn't know, but my kids were like, "Mom, you're so embarrassing. Of course, everyone knows who that is." I didn't know.
Yeah.
So anyways, I mean, how has that been for your family? And
Yeah. Well, it definitely has its perks, but it's been a lot of, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, there were a lot of years there where I felt very insignificant in his life because,
mm,
he has this wife, he has all these kids, he has this music career. So where does mama fit in to that whole scenario? And having boys, like boys are different from girls. Like
mm,
they're your bestie until they get married, and then all of a sudden you're just no longer important. And their
mm,
daughter, I mean, their wife, your daughter-in-law, is their person, which is how God intended it to be. But that's hard on a mama's heart. Like before they got married, I mean, Tom Shrett was like, we were like this, and then all of a sudden, because Tom Shrett's very, like, he needs opinions from everybody on everything that he does. I don't even know the word for that, but he's got to have 50 different opinions for one decision that he's going to make. And I was his person. Like, he consulted me on everything. And then from the moment they got married, it was like, you no longer matter. That's how I felt. That was not actually how he meant it, but I felt you no longer matter. So we had a lot of come to Jesus meetings through the years. Probably every 3 years, I have another talk with him and remind him, hey, here I am. It's me, your mom over here. But the older he gets, the more he gets it. The older he gets, and he sees his kids, and he kind of, he's like, yeah, I need to pay more attention to my mother. But also having a famous person in your family creates a lot of other stuff that, we all just kind of roll our eyes at, because it's like people will ask for anything. Do you think Thomas Rhett, because if they know me, they think because they know me, they know Thomas Rhett. Do you
mm,
think Thomas Rhett can send me a video for my child's 5th birthday? Do you think Thomas Rhett could sing at my daughter's wedding? Do you think Thomas Rhett can come play at this fundraiser? Do you think, all these things? And I used to try to do it all because I felt like, well, gosh, I can get him to do this. And I have done those things, sent the videos and done the things. But there came a point where I was like, okay, I have 2 full-time jobs. This is another full-time job, and I can't do it anymore. So I do not even get tickets for my absolute best friends anymore. I don't do it. It was kind of messing with our relationship a little bit because he would
mm,
be like, oh, mom, like this is my job, and it's like he can't ever turn it off. So then I was like, I give up, I quit. And I'm very nice when people ask me for stuff because I still get asked for an awful lot of stuff. And I'm honest. I'm like, it was coming between our relationship and I just can't do it anymore. And
yeah,
people get that. People understand that. And they're like, I get that.
Mhm.
But, it's like you can't go to anywhere you can go anywhere in Nashville and people don't, bother him and stuff like that, and it's not a bother. What bothers him is, like, if he's trying to discipline a kid and somebody comes over and asks for a picture, and he's like, "Hold on, let me spank my child," and then, it's just like, "Let me be a parent first, and
Mhm.
then, this is for later." It's things like that. It's like not being able to go where you want to go. He's busy, busy, busy all the time. So it's like time away from family. It's just, it's a whole bunch of things that surround, um, people don't even think about it. People don't, all people see
Yeah.
it's like, oh, it's amazing. It's great. It's like you have a famous kid. And it's like, yeah, I don't really get to see my famous kid all that much. And that has gotten better through the years as well, because the bigger he gets, the more he can call the shots. But in the beginning, you got to do everything they ask you to do, because that's how you build your career. Just like with us building our career, we say
Right.
yes to everything, you know,
Mhm.
and then that takes up all of your family time. So the more he gets a little bit bigger, then the more he can say no to things, and that get like he's home now, for he can plan his year out and be home for the important things, and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, but that doesn't define you. It's a part of you,
Yeah.
obviously, but being a wife, a mom, a Jesus follower, all the things, your own career that you're working through your network marketing company and loving those grandbabies. Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
I love seeing your pictures. I love sharing my pictures about my grandkids because yeah, that does change our lives, doesn't it? Because
Yeah.
we can actually hand them back.
Yeah. Yes, they're so cute, and they all have such individual personalities, and we only have one boy grandchild. So, and he honestly is so much like Thomas Rhett was, like, gets on the table and entertains us and sings songs and acts out videos and that sort of thing. So, I don't know, he may be the next one.
You never know. You never can tell. Well, that's amazing. I love hearing all the little things about grandkids and children and just how life has evolved for you, which is a beautiful, beautiful story. If you have we got one more question.
Mhm.
I always say I have one more question. I think this is the last question. So, if you could talk to a young girl today that feels like she's just finding out she's pregnant and she feels like she has to give up her dreams because you had big dreams. Like you had some really big dreams of things that you wanted to do. And like you said, God had a different plan for you. But if you could make an impact on a young girl's life today that's finding out she's pregnant and thinking, oh my gosh, my dreams are shattered. What am I going to do now? What would your best piece of advice be to her?
Yeah, I think it would be really similar to my piece of advice to myself, to be like, you know what? It's all going to be okay. It might not be your timeline, and your dreams may change because you have this child, but you're still going to be able to, accomplish your dreams and goals if you set your mind to it, and you have support from family and friends and that sort of thing. But I think I would just say, don't worry about it. It's all going to be okay. It's all going to work out. It just might be on a different timeline than what you had planned for yourself. And I will say this, like, my dream of traveling and living in Paris and all that kind of thing was a very immature dream, because the dream of having children, like, that's when your life really starts. I just didn't realize that that's my life was going to be starting then. I saw it as, oh, my life is over because I'm not going to get to do what I wanted to do, which was a very selfish 19-year-old way of thinking. So, I think your dreams change. You've just got to adjust your timeline, but you can still have kids and accomplish your dreams and goals.
Absolutely. And honestly, I wanted to be an attorney. I really don't ever share that a lot, but that was what I was thinking in my mind is I'm going to be an attorney. I'm a good debater and I can get out there and talk with the best of them. And I was like, yeah, this is what's going to happen. And then all of a sudden that changed,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's all good. It's all good. Okay. So I said one more, but this is how I do like to end my podcast is asking this question. And we didn't talk about this ahead of time, but When you happened to see that the Angie Amberzetti show, Let Her Out to Play, was coming out, what went through your mind when you saw the Let Her Out to Play?
I thought, oh, we're going to talk about a lot of good stuff. That's what I was thinking. Like, you're going to cover like all the topics.
Okay. I love that. And
Am I on the right track?
yes, you are, friend. Because I think sometimes we hold back. We get afraid. We don't want to talk about things. It appears that we live in like this glass house where there's no troubles. But I've had a lot of troubles in the past 56 years. And I've had a lot of great things. And so I am thrilled to be able to share some of those things and be able to have some amazing guests like yourself on my podcast so that we can talk about some of those things and just encourage others. And like I said at the beginning, if we can encourage one person
Hmm.
with doing the podcast or however the Lord is leading us, I think it's well worth it.
Yeah. And hey, hit me up for the other topics because chances are I've been through it. Been through it too.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on today. I appreciate it. Go have a great time on your vacation and we will chat soon.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
That's it for today, friends. Thanks for tuning in with me today. I hope today's episode stirred your soul, sparked your faith, and reminded you that your story is far from over. Keep walking in freedom, keep showing up bold, and never forget, God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. Be sure to leave a review, subscribe, or share this podcast with a friend who needs to hear it as well. Until next time, keep letting her out to play because the world needs your fire.